All right, guys, on today's episode of Anabolic Activities, I'm going to be going over strength training versus bodybuilding, hypertrophy training, whatever you want to call it. Just talk about my personal experiences with doing them. I've done powerlifting, and am currently doing bodybuilding. So I'm just going to get into some of the pros and cons of each, what I found I like myself, and hopefully it can help some of you guys. If my face is a little puffy and I'm a little stuffed up and tired, that's because I have awful allergies right now, so bear with me. All right, guys, I know you've heard me repeat this a million times, but Rice and Grinds, code Anabolic 10. They have amazing products. They have almond butter with a ton of different flavors. They have cream of rice that's not so high in iron, much healthier for you, consistent digestion, tons of flavors. So make sure you go check them out. Use our code again, Anabolic 10. It helps us. It'll help your gains, help your progress. So check that out. Let's get right into it. So strength training, we'll just call it powerlift. I haven't really done too much Olympic lifting, so we'll just call it powerlifting and bodybuilding. If you do Olympic lifting, I think that's amazing, but I'm not really going to touch too much on that, but I'm sure the training blocks might be similar to powerlifting as far as prioritizing technique. So, we'll just go with powerlifting and bodybuilding because that's what I feel comfortable talking about. So I don't want to talk about something I don't have any experience in. So let's see. We'll just break it down one by one, or at least try. Again, I'm not an expert or a professional at either of these things. So for the people in the comments that like to point that out, I don't claim to be anything but a gym bro. So let's start with powerlifting. So strength training, powerlifting, whatever. Basically, I'll go over my experience and then how I feel about it. So did powerlifting for about 2, maybe 3 years, because I did it for 2 years at super training, and then I did it 1 year before I got to super training, which was my own version. I didn't really know how to truly program myself to I guess peak my strength, and I hadn't done a meet before I got here, so it wasn't, I guess, true. It was like an off-season type of powerlifting. Just getting strong, eating a lot of food, trying to perfect my technique. So the main focus is trying to get better at the squat, the bench, the deadlift, and really just moving weight as efficiently as possible compared to bodybuilding, which is getting a pump, just prioritizing getting bigger, whatever style that works for you, whether it's like a low volume, high volume, whatever it is, 4 times a week, 7 times a week. Your focus is just to kind of sculpt your body and get bigger, get full, put muscle on. And with powerlifting, you're definitely going to get bigger because you're getting stronger. And the more strength you gain, the more gains you're going to make in your physique. But how, I guess, specific that is and what areas get brought up during that time is going to be a little bit different compared to bodybuilding, when you're really able to focus on an area and stick to that for as long as you need to bring that body part up. So for example, when I did powerlifting, I definitely put some size on. It wasn't nearly as fast or as quick as when I started bodybuilding. But I definitely still put weight on. I put muscle on because I was getting stronger. I was progressing each week on the same movements, basic progressive overload. But at the end of the day, the focus was still on how perfect can I try to get my squat? How perfect can I try to get my bench or my deadlift? I was studying, you know, going back and looking at videos and studying just the form, the technique of, okay, maybe I didn't brace hard enough on when I was lowering my squat. Maybe my lats weren't tight and my heels weren't, you know, pressed down when I was trying to bench this amount of weight. Maybe I didn't wedge good enough when I was doing a sumo deadlift or something like that, or I didn't lock it out. So that was the main goal, was just how can I try to be, how can I try to get as close to perfect as possible for me on these 3 lifts. So there was a lot of gaps coming out of powerlifting. There's a lot of gaps that had to be filled as far as my physique, because I feel like I mentioned 5 seconds ago, powerlifting programs, you don't really have time to just be like, okay, you know, if I'm a powerlifter and I'm like, I personally want big ass biceps, or I want big ass rear delts, like a muscle group like that, you definitely can mix that in there, and you can even have a 4th day if you train squat, bench, deadlift 3 times a week. You can have a 4th day where you prioritize whatever muscle you just want to grow to look better within your physique, but it's not the same amount of time, and you can't prioritize it the same way you can, in my opinion, in a bodybuilding program, because that's all the bodybuilding program is okay, my calves suck, my back sucks, let's slap together a program to where I'm hitting back 3-4 times a week, and you're going to see tremendous growth from that. When it comes to powerlifting, you can still, you know, do back accessories after every single lift, even your squat days. You can do some back training, but you're also going to need to mix in lower body training. So you can't do all back accessories like you would bodybuilding. Bodybuilding, you have a whole day, multiple days dedicated to one muscle group. So you can only add in so much to do that with the powerlifting program, because you don't want to go too far away from the main lifts that you get judged for. Bodybuilding, you're judged by your physique. Powerlifting, you're judged on how good you can move the weight from point A to point B. So with that, it's like I can only do so many biceps within my powerlifting program. Therefore, I'm not going to get as much growth as I would if I were to do a bodybuilding program. Now, I do know powerlifters that go through bodybuilding blocks where they don't do the main 3 lifts, and that seems to work great. But again, it's still going to be different than doing bodybuilding year round. Now, I'm not saying either one is better, but if we're talking about just adding size and just comparing the two, bodybuilding's gonna win every single time, just because of that reason. You just can hit it more frequently. You can dedicate days to that one area you want to grow, if that makes sense. For example, when I was powerlifting, I was still doing a lot of leg work. I was hitting, I mean, we did a lot of accessories, but those accessories, you also want to prioritize accessories that are going to supplement your main lift. And that might not be, you know, an area you really want to grow. But for example, let me think of, I don't know, for deadlifts, doing like a farmer's carry or something, or for deadlifts doing, I don't know, something like a rack pull, or I don't know, something that's still hard, that's still considered a compound, and you can still get a lot of muscle growth from it, but it might not be as specific as you want it to be. So when I would train, I'd do heavy farmer's carries, my grip would get stronger, My traps would get pretty fatigued and grow, but I wanted my delts to get bigger. I wanted, it didn't really do much for forearm size. I found that my forearms still weren't that big. So I had to do, once I got into bodybuilding, I was doing hammer curls. I was doing just other stuff to focus on growing that area. That's when I saw a huge benefit. A lot of the accessories you're gonna choose are gonna be based off of, okay, how do I get better at the squat? What accessories are gonna improve my squat? Not really what accessories are gonna make me grow the outer, my outer sweep or my adductors or this or that or the fucking outer head of my tricep. You're really just focused on what is gonna allow me to get strong in that muscle, which you will get bigger. So it's kind of confusing, but this is also my experience. You might be able to do just powerlifting accessories, whatever that means, and get amazing growth, but I still don't think it would be the same as doing a hypertrophy style program, which is kind of common sense, but that's just another thing to add. Most people that I know are doing, they're not looking at, most people that I know that powerlift, including myself, I'm picking for my squat day, even if I absolutely love, hack squats, that might not translate, even though it is going to stimulate my quads. I might want to do something that's a little bit more beneficial to the main movement that I found works, like, a different variation of a squat or a stiff-legged deadlift. Something that's going to kind of kill two birds with one stone, or however that goes, where I'm also hitting my lower back, I'm hitting my erectors, I'm working on my grip, I'm working on like picking movements that are gonna, I guess, get me strong in more than one area. That way I know it benefits my squat. And sometimes I might have room for that, sometimes I might not, compared to bodybuilding where I'm still putting the compound movement first, but after, incline barbell or flat barbell bench, I can just focus on growing, fucking hitting my pecs for an hour after that, compared to keeping in mind that, okay, for the bench press, I use my back, my chest, my triceps, fucking everything. So I'm gonna wanna pick things that work and are similar to that, if that makes sense. I know that you still should add, and pretty much everybody still hits, a single arm tricep. They're still being pretty specific, but in comparison to bodybuilding, that's what I found is the main difference, is just I'm able to put an hour, hour and a half into one muscle group a day after my compound, compared to a deadlift, which taxes pretty much everything. So I'm gonna wanna, train whatever I just use. So for deadlifts, my glutes, my hamstrings, my upper back, my lats. So I'm gonna wanna hit and get a pump, I guess, or just do accessories for all of those muscles, which isn't obviously just my back. It's my whole posterior chain. So that's the main thing. And for me, like for squats, and deadlifts, because I was a sumo deadlifter for a decent amount of time, my adductors got huge. Even now, I'm still focusing on growing the rest of my legs because my adductors clearly were getting the most stimulus from doing the heavy compounds, the squat, all the accessories I did to help the squat. That's why I'm saying you're still going to get big, but for me, I didn't know what areas were going to grow because I'm just focused on progressing that one movement, progressing my technique on that squat. So I'm just going about my program. Oh, damn, my adductors got huge. That's great. But then when I get to bodybuilding, I'm like, okay, now I need to chill on my adductors and I can actually focus on growing this part of the quad and grow everything else so everything's balanced. But yeah, there was a lot of gaps to fill, like I said in the beginning of this, coming out of powerlifting, transitioning into bodybuilding. There was just a lot of things I needed to fill, like my back also. My erectors are super thick, super dense from deadlifting heavy, squatting heavy, but my lats weren't necessarily the widest, and they weren't dense in the areas I need them to be. They didn't have that look that I wanted. But my back was dense. It still was big, but it wasn't the look that I needed to compete in bodybuilding. So I had to go back and really focus on those areas. Like even when I would do upper days, we'd pretty much hit everything upper body. But something's always gonna suffer. So for example, this might be confusing, I'm all over the place, but on our upper days, we would bench press, we would warm up, we would bench press, and then we might do lat pull downs, and then we might do some triceps, and then we might do some more triceps, since you need strong triceps to be able to lock out a bench and have a solid bench. You need a big back to bench because that's your base off of your back. And then we might throw in shoulders and biceps towards the end. But towards the end of the workout, you're fatigued as hell. You're not able to put the same amount of effort into those muscle groups as you would be if they were placed in the beginning, or if you had a whole day dedicated to them like bodybuilding. So that's where a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people too come from strength training into bodybuilding, and they have the same issues, which they can be fixed with enough time, but it's just, that's just what happens. You can't do everything all at once. Now, I do believe in compound movements and then a bunch of accessories after, but again, that's usually pretty, narrowed down to one area. So even though I'm progressing on my flat barbell bench for bodybuilding, I'm getting stronger every week, I'm improving my technique, I'm going back and still watching videos so I can be better at that, at moving that weight. But like I said, for the next 45 minutes, I'm only going to be hitting my pecs because I want them to grow. I don't need to worry about, I have to hit my traps, my lats, my triceps, my forearms, my back. I have to hit all those within this upper session, and one of them is gonna suffer. So that's the main difference I feel within my experience of doing both. A lot of powerlifters are jacked as fuck. Jeremy Avila, Joe Sullivan, Stan Efferding, Mark. They are all jacked as hell, but I'm sure if you ask any of them when they tried something different and came out of powerlifting, even if they do bodybuilding blocks for even 3, 4, 5 months, yes, you'll get bigger, but once you transition completely out of that and you focus on one thing, bodybuilding in this case, it's completely different. You're only going to understand what I'm saying if you try it. I recommend you try both. Powerlifting is amazing. Strength training, I prefer more than bodybuilding. I think bodybuilding training is quite boring. That's just what I enjoy. I enjoy heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, and training everything. But if I'm bodybuilding, I can't have, those areas that need to be filled, like your adductors, or you need bigger glutes, or your arms are super tiny compared to your delts, or whatever it is. You can't really you don't want to go on stage and have a bunch of lagging body parts. Like, I wouldn't recommend going straight from powerlifting into a prep, because I tried that and it did not work. I did not look like a bodybuilder. I looked like I had muscle and worked out, but I didn't give myself enough time to focus on growing each muscle group, putting time and effort into each muscle group. And sculpting is kind of a cheesy word, but we'll just use it because I can't think of another word. Sculpting the body compared to just getting strong. But again, by getting stronger, you're going to get bigger. If you're big, there's more room to get stronger in that area. If you have a big ass chest, you know, your potential to have a big ass bench press is going to be there. Same with triceps or whatever, but just how specific each one of those gets is just going to depend on your goal. So that's the main difference. That was pretty confusing, but I still recommend you do both. I think to be well-rounded, I don't know who would want to be super big but not that strong, or, you know, super strong but not that big. I always wanted to be both. I look at people like Mark, like Stan, Nsima, who are jacked as fuck, and they're strong, and they're functional. So that's always what I keep in my head, is I want to be everything, even though I know I can't get it all at once. I can't get it all in one go, but if I give myself enough time, I can pretty much get close to what I have in my head as far as, okay, I want to be super strong, I want to be big, I want to look aesthetic at the same time. How do I do that? You just got to structure your training correctly, give yourself enough time, and don't pigeonhole yourself into one, you know, style. Do them all, try them all, see which one works for you. I still do that. I still squat heavy. I still bench press heavy. I still bench press heavy. I still deadlift heavy. If I don't deadlift, I'm doing a stiff leg deadlift. If I don't bench, I'm doing, you know, some type of variation of a squat or a bench or a deadlift, because I still believe those have their place of being a dense-ass human, being a strong, functional, and yeah, then I just supplement those with hypertrophy work for whatever muscle group I'm trying to hit that day, and it's worked out great. I don't see any, there's definitely benefit to do, like Dexter Jackson, for example. He's known for training super light, super high rep, not doing any compounds from my understanding. And he looked amazing, but that's also genetics. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. I've never tried that, but I'm sure if I did, I probably wouldn't look the greatest, because I found that implementing those heavy movements, heavy sets has a lot, like I feel fuller throughout the week. I know my body is growing based off progress pictures.
What would you say are like the main similarities and differences between the diet?
I would say the main difference is pretty much the same thing as training, how specific you need to be. Bodybuilding, you need to figure out your maintenance calories, and you need to, you know, you're going to learn things over time, and it's all based off of your look, how you look. Powerlifting is how you perform, which performance is still huge for bodybuilding, but I'm more focused on, when it comes to food, I'm more focused on how do I look after I eat this? How do I feel after I eat this? Compared to powerlifting, I can get away with eating a lot more, I guess, foods that maybe might not be considered bodybuilding foods. And, it, you know, eating a fucking candy bar before I go squat, that might bloat me and make me feel really good, you know, because when you get bloated, like Mark said, you're able to brace more. You're fuller in a different way than you would be with bodybuilding. If I did that before a bodybuilding workout, I don't want to have that bloat because I'm not doing anything to where I need to brace like that or do any of that. It's just going to push my stomach out and it's going to ruin the aesthetic I want. And I might not get a pump because it's sitting in my stomach rather than eating a super clean meal that's super tapered to what I need at the time to get a good pump and feel good in the gym and have a flat stomach. So in short, in how I see it is in powerlifting, I can pretty much eat what I want. I'm not stressed about it. I know pretty much it's calories in, calories out. The more calories I can fit in, the stronger I'm going to feel, the better I'm going to perform. With bodybuilding, you don't want to do that because if you go that route, you're going to add unwanted fat. You could ruin your aesthetics. Your workouts could actually suffer compared to powerlifting because, again, you just want to lift heavy. So eating fucking, I don't know, a gas station diet like Jeremy Avila with high sodium, high fat, high carb is probably going to make you feel stronger and you can do it. But with bodybuilding, you know, it's just going to sit in your stomach and you'll probably just feel uncomfortable, and then you'll go in the mirror to pose and your stomach will be pushed out and you'll feel like shit and you will regret what you had. So yeah, powerlifting, a lot of powerlifters like Joe Sullivan, Briani, a lot of people I've seen are, compared to what it was when I was watching Larry Wheels when he was young, Joe when he was young, Mark, they were eating whatever they wanted pretty much. Fucking chips, candy, a bunch of stuff. Pete Rubish, you know, drinking a bunch of fruit juice, eating a bunch of ice cream every night. That's when I got into powerlifting, that's what I saw. That's what I chose to do. And it honestly worked great. But it wasn't as beneficial as eating cleaner for my physique. But for my performance, I felt great. I was eating a lot. I was eating not the cleanest food, but it still worked amazing. So, yeah, that'd be the main difference.
What about the similarities between the two?
Similarities, I would say, with the diet, protein. I would say that's the main thing is, yeah, the protein. Because either way, you want to make sure you have a good amount of protein in your diet, or even if you're doing a seafood diet like I was in powerlifting. I know a lot of people do that where they just eat whatever they want. But the main thing with that, the key to not feeling like shit is, and not getting super, out of shape or whatever you want to call that, without adding unwanted body fat. If you prioritize protein, whether you're doing anything, even if you're playing a sport, that should be your number one goal. Because in the beginning, I didn't prioritize protein, and I just was eating a lot of sugar, a lot of fat, a lot of carbs, didn't track my protein. I would definitely, most meals would have some type of meat in them, but it wasn't enough to make me feel the greatest. I felt lethargic all the time. I didn't have that fullness in my muscle. My performance kind of suffered compared to when I did try the protein, and I bumped my protein up and actually ate the amount that I know I need for my body weight. I felt way better. Same with bodybuilding. I think it's not super high protein. It's also not super low protein. It's kind of right in the middle. I would say whatever you weigh, eat that amount. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe even a slightly bit lower, but not too far out of range from what your body weight is. But that's the main similarity, is just if your protein is in a good spot, you're gonna feel stronger, you're gonna recover better, and the same goes for bodybuilding.
What would you recommend doing first for somebody who's like new in the gym?
For somebody new in the gym, I would say focus on getting strong for sure. You want a good strength base because it's going to help your bodybuilding. I know I said don't pigeonhole yourself, but strength is like, that should be your foundation, that should be your base, because it's also going to make you strong at everything. You're going to get stronger at your accessories. I'm not saying just do squat, bench, and deadlift. You can switch it up. You can do whatever you want. You could do military press. You could do whatever it is. I'm not saying you have to do powerlifting movements, but getting strong and focusing on progressing each week on your lifts, whether that's technique, a rep or two extra, or more weight, that should be your main goal, because that's going to help everything. That's just going to help you be a stronger human. And then allow you to get bigger muscles. And then when you get bigger muscles, you have more room to get even stronger. And then you just continue that and ride that out until you need to switch something up. But I still recommend always doing a mixture of both. So do, I guess, to some degree, strength training. Maybe I like to do it in the beginning. You might, I'm not, like I said, you don't need to do a flat barbell bench press if you're bodybuilding. You can do incline barbell. You can do incline dumbbell. But something that you're going to really be able to progress on that's somewhat of a compound movement, to where you kind of have to brace. You kind of have to focus on moving the weight, but still connecting with the muscle because you're bodybuilding. But yeah, I would just say progressive overload. That's the main thing. Focus on that as long as you can, then switch things up as you need. All right, guys, so that is it for today's episode. If you have any topics you want me or Mark to talk about, let me know. This was kind of all over the place, so I hope it makes sense. I hope you guys can benefit from this video. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe. We really appreciate all of you guys. I still can't believe anybody is listening to me. Make sure you leave a review, or you don't need to make sure. If you want to, leave a review on the audio. It really helps us, and we do appreciate that as well. Also, Wyatt Films will leave a link to the Discord under this video. Basically, if you don't know what Discord is, I could say whatever I want without getting flagged, without getting banned. So if you guys have any questions for me there, as far as whatever the hell you want, could have to do with supplements, bodybuilding, life, crazy girlfriends, whatever you guys want, let me know. I'm an open book, so subscribe to that.